Some environments are designed for comfort, but what you're about to understand exists far beyond comfort. I'd say it's a system so precise, so quietly powerful, that a single walk beneath trees can change your biology in ways most people never realize. In this video, you'll discover how forests directly influence your immune system, how the air beneath a canopy carries active compounds into your bloodstream, and why just a few hours in the right environment can create measurable changes that last for weeks. Before we go further, make sure to subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon so you never miss informative research-based content like this. It began with a simple but persistent experiment. For nearly a decade, researchers collected blood samples from people before and after they walked through forests. Not hiking, not intense exercise, just slow, steady walking on flat ground for 2 to 3 hours, surrounded by trees, breathing in air that carried a faint scent of pine. Before entering the forest, blood was drawn. After the walk, another sample was taken, and across multiple studies repeated over years, the results stayed the same. The blood that came out was measurably different from the blood that went in. The most important change was in natural killer cells, often called NK cells. These are a critical part of your immune system, responsible for identifying and destroying virus-infected cells and early-stage cancer cells. After time spent in the forest, NK cell activity didn't just increase slightly, it increased by nearly 50%. And what made this finding even more significant was not just the increase, but how long it lasted. The elevated immune activity didn't fade after a few hours or even a few days. It remained elevated for up to 30 days. One weekend spent under trees produced a full month of enhanced immune surveillance. At first, the obvious explanations were tested. Was it the walking, the light exercise, the mental relaxation of being away from daily stress, the visual beauty of nature? But when each of these factors was isolated and tested independently, none of them fully explained the effect. The mechanism was something else. It was in the air. The trees themselves were releasing compounds, microscopic, invisible molecules, into the air beneath their leaves. And those molecules were entering the human body through the lungs, moving into the bloodstream, and directly interacting with immune cells. This wasn't symbolic or indirect. It was biochemical. There is a timeline to what happens when you step into a forest, a sequence of changes that begins with your very first breath and builds steadily over time. Within minutes, compounds in the air are already entering your bloodstream. Within about 30 minutes, your body begins to show measurable shifts. And long before you've walked any significant distance, the process is already underway. To understand this, you have to start with the air itself. Because the first thing the forest does to your body doesn't happen through movement, or through thought, or through relaxation. It happens through your nose. The moment you step beneath a canopy, your olfactory system encounters a class of molecules that trees continuously release into the surrounding air. These are known as phytoncides, volatile organic compounds produced by trees as part of their own defense system against bacteria, fungi, and insects. Different types of trees release different compounds. Coniferous trees like pine and cedar release alpha-pinene and beta-pinene. Broadleaf trees release compounds like D-limonene. Others release camphene and similar molecules. These compounds belong to a group called terpenes, lightweight hydrocarbons that evaporate easily. Observe and disperse through the air, forming an invisible chemical environment beneath the forest canopy. This concept is not new. In 1928, a scientist named Boris Tokin demonstrated that the air within pine forests contained active antimicrobial substances. His experiments showed that microorganisms placed near fresh pine tissue were destroyed within seconds by these airborne compounds. In controlled environments, the same compounds were capable of sterilizing air inside sealed chambers. And in a living forest, the scale of production is massive. A single hectare of pine forest can release several kilograms of these compounds into the air on a warm day. The output increases with temperature as trees become more metabolically active and release more of these molecules through their leaves. This means that a forest is not just a collection of trees, it is a continuous chemical system, producing and releasing biologically active compounds into the air at all times. On a warm afternoon, the concentration of these molecules beneath a dense canopy can reach levels that are invisible, often below the threshold of smell, but still active at a cellular level. The deeper you go into the forest, the more these compounds accumulate, especially in still air, where wind does not disperse them. And when you breathe that air, those molecules don't stay outside your body, they enter it. Your lungs are designed to absorb gases efficiently. These terpene compounds are fat-soluble, which allows them to pass easily through the alveolar membrane in the lungs and enter the bloodstream. Within minutes, they begin circulating throughout your body. By the time you've taken a few dozen breaths beneath the trees, these compounds are already moving through your system. And with every breath, the dose increases. What you smell when you enter a forest, that clean, slightly resinous scent, is only a small fraction of what is actually present in the air. Most of the compounds are below your conscious detection, but your body does not need to smell them to respond to them. They are already working. And this is where the forest stops being just an environment and begins to act as a direct biological influence. Because once these compounds enter your bloodstream, they don't remain passive. They move with purpose, interacting with one of the most important systems responsible for protecting your body at a cellular level. To understand what happens next, you need to understand the role of natural killer cells. These cells are a type of white blood cell, constantly circulating through your blood and tissues, scanning for anything that doesn't belong. They don't wait for instructions. They don't require prior exposure. They operate immediately, identifying abnormal cells the moment they appear. Virus-infected cells, for example, display foreign markers on their surface. Early-stage cancer cells present altered proteins that signal something is wrong. Natural killer cells are designed to detect these changes. They act as a surveillance system. Every second they are moving, checking, identifying. And when they find a problem, the response is fast and precise. Healthy cells carry a molecular signal that tells the immune system, this is normal. But infected or abnormal cells often lose or alter that signal. That absence becomes the trigger. It's called missing self. And for natural killer cells, that absence is enough. Once activated, the NK cell attaches itself to the target and forms a tight connection. Through this connection, it releases specialized proteins, perforin and granzymes. Perforin creates small openings in the target cell's membrane. Granzymes enter through those openings and activate a self-destruct sequence inside the cell. This process is known as apoptosis, programmed cell death. The cell dismantles itself from within. The NK cell detaches and moves on to the next target. The entire process takes minutes. This is your body's first line of defense, fast, efficient, and always active. But here's where the forest changes everything. When the terpene compounds from trees, specifically alpha-pinene and beta-pinene, enter the bloodstream, they directly influence these natural killer cells. They don't just activate them, they enhance them. Research shows that these compounds increase the production of perforin and granzymes inside NK cells. That means each cell becomes more effective at destroying abnormal targets. At the same time, the number of active NK cells in circulation also increases. So you have more cells, and each one is more powerful. This is not a small adjustment. This is a measurable biological upgrade. Across multiple studies, participants who spent just a few hours walking in forests with high concentrations of these compounds showed an increase of around 50% in NK cell activity. And this increase was observed through direct blood analysis. Before exposure, baseline levels were recorded. After exposure, both the number of NK cells and their killing efficiency had significantly increased. But what makes this even more important is what happens after the walk ends. The effect doesn't disappear when you leave the forest. After a single day of exposure, elevated NK cell activity remained for about 7 days. After a 2-day exposure, a simple weekend, the effect lasted for up to 30 days. 30 days of enhanced immune surveillance from breathing forest air for a weekend, and the decline is gradual. The immune activity doesn't drop suddenly back to normal. It slowly decreases over time, maintaining higher than baseline levels for weeks. This detail matters because it suggests something very specific about how this system works. It suggests a clear and repeatable schedule. If one forest visit can elevate immune function for nearly a month, and then regular exposure once every few weeks could maintain consistently higher immune performance over long periods, not as a temporary boost, but as a sustained state. And that leads to an important implication. The forest is not acting as a one-time intervention. It behaves more like a maintenance system, a natural, repeatable input that supports a biological function your body already has, but may not be fully expressing in modern environments. But before accepting that conclusion, researchers needed to answer one critical question. Was this effect truly caused by the chemical compounds released by trees? Or was it the overall experience of being in a forest, the calmness, the quiet, the visual environment, the break from daily stress? To test the power of the forest, they removed it entirely, placing people in controlled indoor environments to isolate the mechanism. Synthetic terpene compounds were released into the air at forest concentrations. No scenery, no routine change, just the air. The results were clear. Natural killer cell activity increased significantly. The chemical compounds alone triggered the immune response. Trees produce these for survival, but when we inhale them, they trigger our immune system's ability to eliminate abnormal cells. Beyond immunity, the forest addresses stress. Chronic stress keeps cortisol high, which suppresses our natural defenses. But within 20 minutes of entering a forest, cortisol levels begin to drop. Your heart rate and blood pressure decrease. The restorative parasympathetic nervous system becomes dominant, and your body begins to heal. The forest is a system interacting directly with your biology through the very air you breathe. This is the opposite of the stress response. Instead of fight or flight, the body shifts into a state of repair. And this shift is not triggered by effort or intention. It's triggered by the environment itself. The visual pattern of the trees, the natural light filtering through leaves, the sound of wind and subtle movement, the absence of artificial noise. All of these inputs work together to signal to the brain that the environment is safe. And when the brain recognizes safety, it reduces the need for a constant stress response. And then cortisol levels begin to fall. The entire body starts to relax. The process of recovery begins. But what makes this even more important is how it connects to the immune system. Because cortisol and natural killer cells are not independent systems. They are directly linked. When cortisol is high, NK cell activity is suppressed. When cortisol drops, that suppression is lifted. So what happens in a forest is not just one mechanism. It's two working together at the same time. On one side, phytoncides from the trees are entering your bloodstream and increasing the activity and effectiveness of NK cells. On the other side, cortisol levels are dropping, removing the inhibition that was preventing those cells from operating at full strength. One mechanism adds stimulation, the other removes suppression. And when both occur together, the effect is not just additive, it becomes stronger than either one alone. This explains why the immune response observed in forest environments is so significant. It's not just activation, it's activation combined with release. Now consider what this means in a real-world context. A person under chronic stress, whether from work, lack of sleep, or constant mental pressure, may have elevated cortisol levels for days or even weeks. During that time, their immune system is operating below its full capacity. Natural killer cells are present but less effective. Their ability to detect and destroy abnormal cells is reduced. Not completely disabled, but limited. Over time, this matters. Because the immune system's role is continuous surveillance. It's not about responding once, it's about detecting small problems early before they develop into larger ones. If that surveillance is reduced for extended periods, the probability of missing something increases. And that increase doesn't happen in a single moment. It accumulates over time. Now place that same person into a forest environment. Within 30 minutes, cortisol begins to fall. The suppression on NK cells starts to lift. At the same time, phytoncides are entering the bloodstream, increasing NK cell activity and efficiency. The system is no longer being held back, it is being supported. This dual effect explains why even short periods of time in a forest can produce measurable changes. It's not just relaxation, it's not just exposure, it's a coordinated biological response. And by the time you reach that 30-minute mark, something important has already happened. Cortisol has dropped, the parasympathetic system has taken over, phytoncides are circulating, natural killer cells are beginning to respond. You may not feel all of this consciously, but the shift is real, it's measurable, and it doesn't require effort. You don't need to focus or meditate or follow a specific routine. You just need to be there, because the forest is not asking you to do something. It is providing something your body already knows how to respond to. And that response begins almost immediately and continues to build the longer you remain within it. By the time you reach that 30-minute mark, the transition is already well underway. Your body has not entered a new state. It has returned to one it was originally designed to operate in, a state where stress is not constant, where recovery is not delayed. And this distinction matters, because what the forest provides is not an artificial boost. It is not forcing your body into something unnatural. It is removing the conditions that were preventing normal function in the first place. The constant alertness, the suppressed immune response, these are not the baseline. The forest reverses that pattern. It signals safety. It reduces the need for vigilance. And in doing so, it allows systems to return to normal function. But there is another layer to this process, one that doesn't come through the air. It comes through the ground. The surface of the earth carries a mild negative electrical charge. This is maintained by natural processes, including continuous lightning activity across the planet. At the same time, the human body tends to accumulate a slight positive charge. When you're insulated by rubber-soled shoes, synthetic flooring, and indoor environments, there is no direct exchange between your body and the ground. But when you walk on natural surfaces, soil, grass, leaf litter, especially barefoot, that changes. A connection is formed. Electrons can move from the earth into the body. This process is often referred to as grounding. And while the concept may sound abstract, the measurements are not. Studies have shown measurable changes in blood properties. Specifically, the surface charge of red blood cells increases. This matters because red blood cells naturally repel each other due to their charge. When that charge is stronger, they flow more easily rather than sticking together. This reduces blood viscosity, allowing oxygen and nutrients to be delivered more efficiently.